Welcome to another edition of Kent Hance, the best storyteller in Texas. We would love for you to follow us on Instagram. It is at Best Storyteller Podcast. We start every episode with a saying of the day. Chancellor, what do you have for us?
Saying of the day fits in with what we're going to be talking about at first, and that is a penny saved is a penny earned. And one of the first things, I think most of us hear that at some point in time when we're small. And if you look at the number of days, you've got about 16.7% November and December of the year. But if you look at the sales for toy stores and for hobby shops, it's 26% of their business. So over a fourth of their business comes in those 2 months, November and December, and it's big. Looking at some of the others, that department stores, they're right at 26% as well. And then clothing stores at 22%, electronics at 22%, discount department stores 21%. And I wondered about that, and I guess they're always advertising their discounts so people go more the year round. Only online was 20%. Mm-hmm. So it was less. If you look at the ones that lose some, automobile dealerships, that people are spending too much money on gifts and smaller items, so it cuts into their sales a little. But they still have trying to push sales for Christmas presents. They still are above the 16%. And that the one that's really not touched at all is groceries. It stays. It's at 17.2% versus 16.7% of the time. So it has a little bump, but not much. Mm-hmm. But you talk to a small businessman, a small businesswoman in any area that has a shop in a mall or a strip mall or something like that, if they don't make it in November and December, they don't make it. And there's a lot of businesses, small businesses, will close in January and February because they gave it the best shot, and if they didn't make it in that time, then they're going to go ahead and get out.
Chancellor, what was Christmas like for you growing up in Dimmitt, Texas? What was it?
It was great. I always got a red delicious apple, which I love apples, and now I eat one a day. Mm-hmm. Now that I can afford it, but I'd have a big gift and a little gift. Had one time at church, we'd get people's names. You wouldn't tell whose name you got or anything. You get something, and I got a dime wrapped up. I was so mad. It took me a couple of weeks to find out who gave me a dime. Is Mac Thompson.
You haven't forgotten.
I hadn't forgotten it. I still razzed him about it. He's now passed away. But he and his twin brother, they're Freddie Jack and Teddy Mac. Mm-hmm. And he wrapped up a dime. And he didn't have the help from his mother or dad. He did it on his own. He was trying to save a little money. Mm-hmm. And so he gave me a dime. And I didn't have the right Christian attitude at the time. I was not but about 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to get even with him. But I finally got over that, and we got a big laugh out of it at class reunions. We had it was a small town, and people, you might go to Amarillo or Lubbock to do some shopping, but you had stores all around the square, and that Saturday it'd be full of people. People come in to shop. Well, as you got more discount stores and you had Walmart and things like that, they whether it's good or bad, or they ran out, and the small business people couldn't compete with them. I had a friend of mine that was in the tire business in La Mesa, a guy named Don Bethel, who served on several state boards. And he and his wife, they had a Bush, when I was running for Congress against Bush, they had a Bush sign and a Hance sign. He had been at Tech with me, and he had supported me, and she'd been at SMU with Laura Bush, and she was supporting Bush. And people would be confused. They'd go by and see one sign of each. But Bethel told me he realized he needed to get out of the tire business when he read one Saturday morning of a Walmart store, that they were selling tires cheaper than he could buy them. And he said and he got in the real estate business, did real well. But is a great guy, is a funny guy, and had he decided that, if they're going to sell them cheaper than I can buy them, then I need to get out of this business. A lot of adjustments in small towns. At Walmart had a store in Lamesa, and then they closed it. In Walmart, they got into some of those smaller markets, and they probably made money, but it wasn't the best return they could have on their investment. So therefore, they went and they concentrated on the larger markets, whether it's town Lubbock or Amarillo or any town that has 50,000 people or more. They're going to have at least one or two Walmarts or one of their superstores.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious. You mentioned something just a moment ago. When you ran against George Bush in Congress and won. What's the one political achievement of yours that most people remember you for? Because oftentimes when I tell someone I work for Chancellor Kent Hance, the first thing they say is, only guy to beat George Bush in an election. Everybody remembers that.
I think they'd remember that, but probably the biggest thing was that I upset a guy named Doc Blanchard, who wasn't a football player, but he took the same name, and his twin brother was sheriff, Doc and Chalk. And I was stupid enough to think that I could beat him and ran and did, but he had been state senator 16 years. And he got a little complacent and didn't work the district. And we had a deal in Seminole, Texas, and he showed up to speak and everything. And they said he got up and spoke. And there were probably 100 people there. And he said, "It's good to see all my old friends in Seminole." And this guy in the crowd said, "Doc, they'd have to be old. You hadn't been down here in 10 years. And he looked at me, and I didn't plant the guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I'd known about the guy, I would have planted him, but I didn't plant him. He just said it on his own, and so that was the one where I had the pollster. Was a professor at Texas Tech, Don Boucher, and he started polling, and we talked to a pollster, and he said, "You got to do the same thing every time to see if there's any trends, if there's any movement." And a good pollster is going to ask the same questions consistently, may add one or two because some issues may change, but he's going to ask the questions consistently and find out if there's a trend one way or the other. And we didn't have good name ID when we ran our first poll, but we were using the top of the phone book. And we'd carry on the left column, we'd make phone calls down that column. Then we'd go over to the next page and do it on the right column. And we were able to find out that our poll predicted that I'd beat him by 7.5 points, something like that. And election night, it was 54-46. It was 8 points. And we did that because the professor, he read a bunch of books on polling and talked to a pollster, and he did it free. And he had people, that volunteered that were students, mm-hmm. And so it's pretty. We couldn't afford a real pollster is going to charge you $20,000 to $30,000, and if it's a national poll or something, it'll probably charge you $50,000. But in presidential elections, they're polling every night, and one of the problems that happened, people don't have home phones anymore, and so that's the reason that they were all wrong on 2016. They thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and the results were not in accordance with what people were thinking, and they've now shifted more to cell phones. But on the last night of the campaign, Hillary had some people that the last day of the campaign, she had like 100, 200 people show up. And Trump was having like 20, 30,000 show up. Mm-hmm. And so, it's just anytime you have a large number of people show up, something's actually happening. When the Shah of Iran was in trouble in 1978, 79, they started having demonstrations. There'd be over 1 million people show up. Now, if you have something that you're trying to get people to go to in the United States, if you gave free pizza, and pizza and beer, well, if you had beer, it might be more show up, but I don't know you're going to get 1 million people to show up. 1 million people show up, they're mad. They're mad about something, and they wanted to change. And of course, what's happened, the very change they wanted came about, but not in the terms that they wanted. And they lost what freedoms they had, and they still haven't gotten them back. That was 1979. So it's been 46 years. So there have been people born and grow up and that are in their 40s that have never known any type of freedom that they had in Iran.
It reminds me of something you said once, that the greatest fear that a dictator has is their own people.
Their own people. That China's greatest fear is not the United States. They're afraid that the people will have an uprising at some point in time. That's how they got power, and so they're looking at who else can gain power and how can they. And so they're very concerned about what happens internally. Adolf Hitler, he had to have enemies internally and everything, and that's how he gained power.
Chancellor, getting back to spending money over the holidays, we broke down some of the numbers and where they're spent. This year, what people want, cash.
They want cash, and I think it was like 58% of the people surveyed say, what would be the favorite gift? It'd be cash or gift cards. Mm-hmm. And clothing came in second. It was like at 29%. So the cash, it's they'd love to have cash because they can go buy what they want, mm-hmm. and not have to go to a refund, and hope that you don't bump into the person that gave you the gift at the refund.
Or hold on to it to re-gift it.
I had a guy that worked for me, and Sam White is a good guy. Sam White always said he didn't think there was a small number of fruitcakes because people get it and they rewrap it and give it to somebody else, and it just goes around the same place.
And I think they all come from the Collins Street Bakery in Corsicana.
They do. I mean, that's big business in Corsicana, and they operate year round. But come November and December, I'll bet you they get over half their business during that period of time. They're big time. Going
back to what you said earlier, you got to have a good November and December, right, to make it.
And that's and I'm trying to think of the name of the turkey farm in Tyler, Texas, and they have a certain type of turkeys, and you can send it to somebody, and it's ready to eat when they get it. It's well done.
Every year we hear stories about someone not being in the Christmas spirit. That happened in Mississippi.
Oh yeah, this is great. A family, the dad wanted to put up a scene, but not a way in the manger scene. He put a Grinch scene up out in front of their house, and someone stole it. Someone stole the Grinch. I mean, that's the ultimate bad move, to say the least. But I laughed when I read that they were thinking that'd be funny and everything, and somebody stole it. So
a Grinch got even with the Grinch.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Grinch lost twice.
A 66-year-old guy in Florida got arrested. I know that you saw this story after he got in a fight with a guy inside of a Home Depot.
Got in a fight with him and grabbed an umbrella from the umbrella racks and choked him from behind, and then got arrested and was upset that he got arrested. Mm-hmm. There were videos of him choking the guy. Remember this: no matter where you go or what you do, there are videos. And you're going to wind up being on video, and they're going to have pretty good evidence. I had a client one time that they had a video of him committing a crime, and we looked at it, and he said, "He sure looks like me." The reason he looked like him, it was him. I mean, there was not much defense on that. His picture shows up, and it's obvious to everybody.
That was in the divorce case, right?
Well, no, I had another one in the divorce case. Divorce case where the guy leaned up and said, "Some bitch looks like me, don't he?" "Yeah, he does. It's you." He learned the hard way on that, and was not real wise. He should have told the truth early on.
Staying with the stupid criminal theme, never a great idea to pose as a police officer.
I think was that in Albuquerque or
yes, San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
The guy arrested people. He pulled a person over because they cut him off in traffic, and he was about to, he was talking to him whether he's going to write a ticket or not. And so some real policemen came along, and they looked and said, well, that's an odd-looking deal. And they pulled over and started asking questions, and instead of being the arrestor, he became the arrestee.
Mm-hmm.
Don't play like you're a policeman. That's every once in a while you read about someone doing that, you think how stupid that to think they're not going to get caught.
Because they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, at some point in time. Let's see your badge.
Right.
And you're not going to have a valid badge, or you're going to have a badge that came with a cap gun set for 5-year-olds.
It's kind of like you've said once before, not everybody is suited to be a police officer.
No, I still go back, and I don't know what's ever happened to the DPS guy that was at A&M that shoved the football players from South Carolina and turned around and pointed at them like he was lecturing them. And a guy shouldn't be wearing a gun. Mm-hmm. I worry about that. And that you got to be able to be calm under all conditions and follow your regulations and know what you're doing. Police in this day and time are really well trained. We had a guy that was a mechanic in Dimmitt when I was growing up, and Fred, everybody in town liked him, and he got too old to crawl under cars, and he needed another job, and they made him night watchman. My dad said within 2 months he had arrested everybody in town twice. He couldn't stand the power of that gun. He wanted that power, and so they said, Fred, maybe you ought to go back to working on cars.
This isn't for you.
Yeah, this isn't for you.
A question was asked of 12,000 adults. Would you rather live on a planet that was all men or all women?
Yeah. The men answer they'd rather live on a planet with all women. And I was trying, was it
53% of guys think
53%? Yeah, 53% of the men said they'd like to live on a planet with all women. I guess, it didn't want competition. I don't know. But only 14% of the women said they'd like to live on a planet with all men. That's a big change.
Mm-hmm.
Big change. And I thought they interviewed like 12,000 people.
Right.
So, they got a high number there. They could be fairly accurate. But I would, somebody asks you off the wall questions, I'm always like, no, why are you asking this?
Right.
Where are we headed with this?
And at the cost of polls, who's paying to find out that information?
That I don't know. Someone that is trying to create a story somehow.
True. NBC created its peacock logo in 1956. You have some
56. RCA owned NBC at the time, one of their major investors. And RCA, they were trying to sell color TVs. And so the peacock, they went with the peacock because it'd have different colors, and they could put different colors in it and make it very colorful in the trying to sell color TVs. I still tell the story about the time I represented the cat that won the TV, and the sign said, free drawing for color TV. And in this day and time, and for the last 50 years or 40, it'd just say free TV. It said free color TV. This is a big deal. It's a color TV. Mm-hmm. You get to see all the various colors. Get to see the peacock. And that's the reason RCA, they came up with the idea. They thought that it would help them sell more televisions.
Tell a story about the cat winning the TV, though. That's interesting.
This little girl, she went to a department store, and they had a drawing for a free color TV. And she signed up, and it said only one per individual. And she got a call a few weeks later, and they said, may we speak with Toots Chandler? And said, well, you can, but she can't talk back. And they said, why? I said, well, she's a cat. And they laughed, and they said, well, the cat won the free color TV. And so, they were excited, and they go down to get it, and this little girl she was like 9, and her brother was a Texas Tech student in one of my classes, and he took her down there to get the TV. And they said the manager has intervened, and he's, they're not going to give a cat a TV, which was stupid. I mean, that'd been a good public interest story. Mm-hmm. And so he came to see me and brought his sister, and it was, I talked to him, and I thought, this is easy to solve. And I called the manager to tell him, well, do this, try to get some publicity, it'll help you. Well, the manager, number one, he told me early on he didn't like lawyers. And 2, he didn't like getting calls like that. And 3, told me what I could do with the telephone. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to place that phone where he wanted me to place it. So, when you're dealing with a young lawyer that's got some time, don't get in a fight with them. But I sued him. And we go over and file the lawsuit. And when we sued, we had the Toots Chandler. We had a line for Toots Chandler. Of course, Toots couldn't sign, but we brought Toots down and put their paw in some ink and put the paw print down there. And so I go over with the little girl, and she's carrying the cat, and to file the lawsuit in JP court, and that someone, I don't know who would have done this, had tipped off the TV stations and the newspaper, and they were all over there with cameras and everything. And it got huge play, got a big story, as public interest story, and that this cat got cheated out of the TV and everything. And so a lawyer, Jim Milam, who was a big-time lawyer and represented businesses and great guy, great lawyer, he called me, and he got hired by the store that, was refused. He said, we need to get this thing settled. And they'd been getting calls. They were getting death threats and, crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. And we settled it, and I made a good fee. The cat got the TV, and the little girl got a gift coupon for clothing. But
you became known as the guy that represents cats.
Yeah, Hance represent cat, represent anybody, and that. I represented the cat, and that's always been one of my favorite stories. That they had an easy answer that would have helped their business, but and the guy got fired. The manager got fired. Yeah, so it was not a colorful event for him.
Pretty interesting. Even people that are doing pretty good in the world, 40% of people with a household income of $100,000 or more have admitted to stealing something at least once.
Yeah, and what they admitted to, though, was self-checkout. You can go to a grocery store or sometimes drugstore, and you can do a self-checkout. Mm-hmm. And I've tried it, and I've gotten where I'm pretty good at it. And if I've got just a few items, I go through that. But I always ring each item because I figure their camera's going to be on you, and,
mm-hmm.
You shouldn't and wouldn't. I always hated when somebody stole something from me, so I'm not going to steal something from somebody else and go through. But they said that of the people that stole, 40% of them were in an income bracket of $100,000 or more. What is stealing, $1 or $5 or, it's just.
Maybe it's the thrill of getting away with that.
I don't know. I had a girl one time that I represented on shoplifting at Kmart, and she was from a very wealthy area of Dallas, and she's stolen some stuff, some lingerie at Kmart, and her mother told me, I could kind of understand it if it had been Neiman's, but for her to go steal at Kmart is just insulting, and I just said, okay.
So you embarrassed the family.
Yeah, embarrassed the family. Got caught stealing at Kmart. Why couldn't it be Neiman's? We're going to do something big.
One of the things that drives people crazy day in, day out, and here in Austin, Texas, it seems to get worse and worse, is traffic. And we've got some of the cities with the worst traffic. Austin's on it, or should be.
Austin should be on it. It is really bad. Houston made it, and I think Houston was 8 or 9. But number 1 was Chicago, and Chicago has terrible traffic. 2 was New York City, and you just can't get around. It's almost impossible. And 3 was Philadelphia. And then, let's see, the 4th one, was Los Angeles. That doesn't surrender. Boston was 5th. Miami, Florida, then Atlanta. But 8 was Houston. And then you go to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. doesn't have any freeways to speak of inside the city. And they've just...
Once you get inside the Beltway, there's nothing.
They took the approach that if you don't build any roads, they won't come. Well, that's wrong. They still showed up, and that's kind of what Austin did. Seattle, Washington, San Juan, Puerto Rico, since it's a U.S. territory. Nashville, I didn't know that.
Nashville's booming.
Yeah.
Population boom there's huge.
Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore's got bad traffic. Denver's not easy to get around. In San Francisco would make up the top 15. Austin, Texas should be on that list. I think Austin's worse than Houston because they have fewer roads. They kind of took the approach of the no-growth city, but they didn't talk to Michael Dell. They didn't talk to state government. They didn't talk to the University of Texas. If they'd talked to those 3 groups, they'd known there's going to be a tremendous increase in the number of people.
Doesn't it seem like to you that in Austin, anyway, they decided to do all the road construction projects at the same time? The whole city, like I think the orange barrel has replaced the blue bonnet as the state flower.
They also, in Austin, most of their roads and freeways run north-south. And they have Ben White and 183 on the north are the only ones that run east-west. And there's nothing through close to the middle.
Right.
And that's where you have your big log jams.
Let's wrap up with this stupid criminal because I know you like this story about the guy that went to the bank and got arrested.
This is the one that he deposited something that he shouldn't have deposited. What he deposited was a bag of meth. He put it in the tube. He was doing the drive-through. The tube comes, he puts the meth in there with some money and deposits it, tell them to deposit it, and they deposit the money. But they also called the police, and the police, they gave him his number, his license number and everything. They catch him, and they search his car, and he's got more meth in there, and he's got cash and everything. I mean, he's so stupid, he's probably saying, wonder how they caught me. Where did I go wrong?
Right.
But I chuckled at that somebody, he must have been high on meth at the time to deposit meth in the tube, the canister that goes to the person that driving. Most people bank online now, and so used to there be, 10 places you could drive up and bank, but they've cut back on that because they cut back on the number of people, and they're using it. It's online. It's faster. I go to the Austin airport in different places where you can go to a kiosk and you order food or whatever. And, somebody is talking about, why do they do that? Well, it's faster. In the kiosk, they don't have a sick baby and call in. Or they don't have the flu someday and call in. I mean, they're sitting there working 24/7, and you're not having to pay hospitalization on them. Anytime that businesses can find a way to have a robot or something that will save them time and money and not be an individual, they do so. And you're seeing that now with your Waymo and the different cars. In Austin, they've got those cars, and I spot them. They're everywhere. And that I rode in one in San Francisco. First time I was last year, went to the Sweet 16 basketball tournament, and we rode in a Waymo. And I mean, you're not going to be talking to the driver. You don't have to tip the driver, and they're pretty good. They have had a few problems. They had a problem that they weren't stopping for school buses in Austin, and so they called them back in and changing the software so they'll recognize a school bus. And, but there's a lot of them out there, and it just tells there's going to be in 10 years there's going to be a lot less truck drivers, maybe more trucks, but they're going to have people driving those trucks.
They're going to not have
having people drive the trucks, and they'll be automated, and they'll be going cross country. it's going to be interesting to see how fast that develops. But I'd say it's going to develop in 10 years. You look at what's happened on these share ride and ride vehicles. That's come pretty fast in the last 2 years.
I'd be scared if I was a long truck driver.
Yeah,
I'd be scared.
Yeah, I would be. I mean that they're going to be having less and less numbers of demand for truck drivers.
How long before that technology makes it out to the wheat field?
Not too long.
No, yeah.
They're going to cut down on migrant workers, and that's happened. Used to in West Texas back in the early 50s, there would be migrant workers come through picking cotton, and they invented cotton picking machines, and there wasn't a need for it anymore, and you have that. And now you have the machines, and they pick the cotton, and then they bundle it, and they wrap it in plastic, and then a truck comes out and gets it at some point in time. And I always tell the drivers, don't smoke. Every once in a while somebody would smoke, and they'd throw a cigarette out the window, and they'd hit in that, cotton, and they'd going 60, 70 miles an hour. It'd catch on fire, and there'd be a truck on fire going down the road, not realizing they were on fire. They'd have to do all kinds of things, get them pulled over, and get them out of the truck. Saying of the day is a penny saved is a penny earned, and lots happening in this month with all that's taking place in shopping for Christmas.